Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who assembled theocratic power in Iran over the decades as its top leader and sought to turn it into a regional powerhouse, bringing it into confrontation with Israel and the United States over its nuclear program while crushing democracy protests, has been killed in U.S. and Israeli strikes. He was 86. Iranian state media reported the death early Sunday after a major attack launched by Israel and the United States. U.S. President Donald Trump said hours earlier that Khamenei had been killed in the joint operation. Khamenei dramatically remolded the Islamic Republic since he took the reins after the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in 1989. Khamenei was the fiery, charismatic ideologue who led the overthrow of the Shah and installed rule by Shiite Muslim clerics tasked with spreading religious purity. It fell to Khamenei, a stodgier figure with weaker religious credentials and a leaden demeanor, to turn that revolutionary vision into a state establishment. He ended up ruling far longer than Khamenei. He greatly expanded the Shiite clerical class and built the paramilitary Revolutionary Guard into the most important body underpinning his rule. The Guard became a military and business behemoth, the country's most elite force and head of its ballistic missile arsenal, with hands across Iran's economic sectors. The Mideast wars, sparked by Hamas's October 7, 2023 attack on Israel, set in motion the collapse of the region-wide axis of resistance built by Khamenei. Israel and Iran attacked each other directly for the first time in 2024. Israel struck Iran again in June 2025 as it and the United States targeted the country's nuclear program and killed top military officers and nuclear scientists. Iran retaliated by sending missiles and drones at Israel. Khamenei's death raises questions about the future of the Islamic Republic. The 88-seat Assembly of Experts, a group of mostly hardline clerics, will choose Khamenei's replacement, but no clear successor is in place. As he launched the bombing on February 27th, U.S. President Donald Trump called on Iranians to take over your government. What happens next may depend greatly on bodies like the Revolutionary Guard, which has repeatedly shown its willingness to use overwhelming force to keep power, even as many of Iran's 90 million people grow disenchanted. Khamenei's daughter and son-in-law, a grandchild, and a daughter-in-law were also killed in Saturday's attack, according to the semi-official Fars news agency, citing unidentified sources. Iran's government declared 40 days of public mourning and a 7-day nationwide public holiday to commemorate Khamenei's death. From a questioned start to a hard-line grip on Iran, Ali Khamenei was born into a religious family in the northeastern holy city of Mashhad, a hotbed of revolutionary fervor during the struggle against the Western allied Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Like many other Iranian leaders, he studied under Khomeini at the seminary in the holy city of Qom, south of Tehran, in the early 1960s, before Khomeini's exile to Iraq and France. Khamenei joined the anti-Shah movement, facing time in both prison and in hiding. When Khomeini returned to Iran in triumph in February 1979 and proclaimed the Islamic Republic, Khamenei was appointed to the secretive Revolutionary Council. In 1981, he was elected Iran's third president. That same year, a bombing by opponents left him with one hand paralyzed. After being named Supreme Leader after Khomeini's death, he rose overnight to the level of Grand Ayatollah, at the top of the hierarchy, and for years had to deal with skepticism over his credentials. Khamenei stabilized Iran after the 1980s war with Iraq and governed for over 3 decades, far longer than Khomeini. He also used a system of appointees to undercut the civilian government elected by its people. The rise and fall of Iran's proxy forces. Under Khamenei's reign, Iran shifted fully from conventional warfare to support for proxies, building the so-called axis of resistance to advance its interests in the region. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, established with Iran's help in the 1980s, drove Israel from southern Lebanon in 2000 and battled it to a stalemate in the month-long 2006 war. Through Hezbollah, Iran perfected a strategy of making local militant groups its allies to project power, often through violence. Iran followed that model when backing Yemen's Houthi rebels, who in 2014 seized the country's capital, Sana'a, and held on for over a decade in a stalemated war in the Arab world's poorest nation, despite facing a Saudi-led coalition and later U.S.-led airstrikes over their attacks in the Red Sea corridor. Elsewhere, suspected Iranian-backed militants bombed a Jewish center in Buenos Aires in 1994, killing 85 people. Iran was also allegedly linked to the 1996 bombing of the Khobar Towers housing complex in Saudi Arabia, which killed 19 members of the U.S. military. Iran denied responsibility for both attacks. Nuclear program advances to near weapons-grade levels. The Supreme Leader remained deeply suspicious of the U.S., referring to it as the Great Satan, even after President Barack Obama came into office in 2009, offering dialogue and a fresh start. He shrugged off UN sanctions and pushed ahead with Iran's nuclear program, which the U.S. and its allies say hid a secret project to build a nuclear weapon up until 2003. Khamenei issued a verbal fatwa, or religious ruling, that nuclear weapons are un-Islamic, but vowed the country would never give up its right to develop what he called a peaceful nuclear energy program. Under Iran's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers, Tehran agreed to drastically reduce its stockpile and enrichment of uranium in exchange for the lifting of economic sanctions. But only 3 years later, Trump, in his first term, unilaterally withdrew Washington from the accord, arguing it didn't go far enough. Confrontation with U.S. With U.S. President Donald Trump, Khamenei faced a more aggressive and unpredictable American drive to stop Iran's nuclear program. Trump unilaterally withdrew America from Iran's nuclear deal with world powers in 2018, bringing a return of sanctions. The two sides came close to war with the United States after an American drone strike killed Revolutionary Guard General Qasem Soleimani in January 2020. At Soleimani's mass funeral that drew millions to the streets, Khamenei wept over the casket of the man he once called a living martyr. 2 days later, the Guard mistakenly shot down a Ukrainian airliner after its takeoff from Tehran, killing all 176 people aboard. In June, Israel and the U.S. bombed Iranian nuclear facilities, inflicting heavy damage. How far back it set the program remained unclear. During the crackdown on nationwide protests in January, Trump renewed threats to strike, demanding Iran make major concessions at the negotiating table. Then came 3 rounds of indirect talks. Then came Saturday,